Hi, my name is Alan McNatt. I'm here to introduce you to a day in the Italian cuisine. Like I said, this is a day in authentic Italian cuisine, and just to get us started, here's some little background. Here's a picture of the nice Roman architecture. Italy is the home of the Roman Empire, and the architecture is based off of Renaissance and Baroque styles. The major religion in Italy is like Catholicism, Roman Catholicism, and it is influenced by many different countries. The cuisine of Italy that's majorly influenced by Austrian, French, Slovenian, and other European ethnic groups have influenced the cuisine. The cultural values of the cuisine are family and food. So those are the two things that the Italian food is really based around. The three major components are pasta, cheese, and wine. You'll see that in a lot of Italian dishes throughout today, even in today's Italian food. Italian art has also been a major influence in the movements of Italy. So as we go on, we can see that Italy has, all throughout Italy, there's many different types of foods and throughout the country. You'll see pasta is the major food. It's kind of like the vehicle for flavor, meaning it's kind of the base, all the sauce and everything else that goes with it is where you'll find different flavors, but pasta is kind of the general base. The other major components would be cheese and wine. There's obviously, just like pasta, a lot of different kinds of cheese and wine, a lot of different kinds of variety there. And with Italian food, you'll eat the boldest of flavors and very fresh produce. That's another thing, especially in the olive oil and just the produce used to make those kind of oils. The major holiday in Italy is Epiphany. It's the 6th day after Christmas. It celebrates the wise men that came to see baby Jesus. It celebrates them, and it's traditionally celebrated the origins are from Giorno di Magro. That is the day of eating less. That is, I guess, you fast on that day. And yes. So then these are some traditional foods eaten on Epiphany. That's capitone, and then here's Napoli's traditional Christmas strafoli. Then our other holiday is Pasquetta. That is translated as Little Easter. It's the Monday after Easter, and it celebrates both the Marys in spring. The celebration is at the end of Lenten season, and that's this season in Catholicism where you give up something for 40 days, whether it be sweets, foods, or any sort of thing. Some traditional dishes eaten on this day are calzones, frittatas, salamis, and other sorts of cheeses. And here's some just examples of the calzone and frittata.
Hello, my name is Mariah Wilson, and I'll be talking about some foods that are specific to Italy and a typical breakfast meal in Italy. So some foods specific to Italy are fusilli, which is a type of pasta. It comes from the root word fuso, which is Italian for spun, and Italian chefs will get a rod and spin noodles around the rod, and it makes a spiral shape. Another food is polenta, and that's similar to American grits, but it's made with cornmeal, and it's a typical Italian comfort food. Another food typical to Italy is prosciutto, which is cured ham, and that's very typical of the Italian culture. They preserve foods really well. They preserve grapes with wine and olives with olive oil, and meat with prosciutto and cured meats. And the next food specific to Italy is grana padano, which is a really special Italian cheese. It's comparable to Parmesan cheese. It's flaky and aged for anywhere to 6 to 24 months, and it's a really special Italian cheese. So this is a picture of fusilli, and as you can see, it's spiraled. And then here's a picture of polenta, and it looks like mashed potatoes, and it's just really finely ground cornmeal. It's prepared over a stovetop. There's a picture of prosciutto, and that's really thinly sliced cured ham. And then this is the grana padano, and you can see it's made in a wheel, and it does look a lot like Parmesan cheese. Okay. Now, typically, a typical Italian breakfast can be caffè latte and fette biscotti. And basically, yeah. So it's a type of coffee drink made with espresso, and then the fette is a type of rusk cookie. It's like bread, but a little bit sweeter. It's not as sweet as like American baked goods, but it's similar. Okay, so cafe latte and the fette are common for an Italian breakfast. The only special material needed to make these meals is a home espresso maker, and these can be really big or fancy, or like small, like a tea kettle, which is what we will be using in our recipe. So to make cafe latte, you first have to make espresso. So to make espresso, you need water and coffee grounds. This is a picture of a espresso maker that you can buy at home. It's really similar to a tea kettle, but instead of just having one container, it has 3. And in the bottom container, you put water, and it has a little steam pipe. And then the second container, you fill it up with coffee grounds. And so in the third container, you leave empty. And so once you put water in the bottom, coffee grounds in the middle, you stack the containers on top of each other and heat it up, and the water will push through the coffee as it gets hot and evaporates, and then it'll make espresso and it'll bubble up into the top container. And so once you make the espresso, you pour it into a measuring cup, and then you can use it to make cafe latte. And to make this Italian drink, you need 2 cups of milk and 1 1/3 cup of espresso. So what you're going to do is you heat the milk in a small saucepan over medium heat, and then you whisk it as it heats up until a foam forms. And once the foam has formed, you add the hot milk to the espresso, but you don't add the foam. Like, you keep the foam back with a spoon. And then once the milk is poured, then you spoon the foam on top of the milk and espresso mixture. Now to make the fette, you need 0.15 ounces of instant active dried yeast, 90 milliliters of warm water, half an ounce of powdered sugar, 16 ounces of bread flour, 0.2 ounces of salt, 190 milliliters of milk, 1.4 ounces of soft butter. So the first step, you combine the yeast, water, and sugar, stir it until it's mixed, and then let it sit for 10 minutes. Then in another bowl, you combine the flour and salt, and then you combine the 2 mixtures, the yeast mixture and the flour mixture, but you put the yeast mixture in the center of the flour mixture, in the center of the bowl. And then after that, you're going to add the butter and mix it until a dough forms, and then you cover and let it sit for 30 minutes. And after it's sit, you transfer that dough into a greased and floured bread pan, and then you cover that with a tea towel and let it sit for an hour. And then after it's sit, you heat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You bake that for 30 minutes. And then after that's done, you take it out and let it sit for 2 hours at room temperature. And then lastly, after it's sat out, you're going to preheat the oven 400 degrees, and then slice the bread that you just baked and place it in a single layer on a baking sheet to where they're touching, but just in one single layer. Bake it for 7 minutes, flip the slices, and then bake it for 8 minutes. And instead of taking it out and letting it cool at room temperature, just open the oven door and turn off the oven so that they cool nicely. And then you can serve it with store-bought jam or Nutella. And then here are a picture of each of the dishes.
Hi, my name is Victoria, and I'll be presenting wines and a typical Italian lunch.
Wine is usually a very big part of lunch and dinners in Italy. You can define your wines into 4 categories: Vino, IGT, DOC, or DOCG. You typically have your white wines and your red wines. Your white wines will have a kind of dry, very fruit flavor to them, usually a peach and apple or creaminess from aging. Your red wines will consist of a very tart, more flavor, such as cherries, truffles, purple fruits, and dried herbs. A typical Italian lunch can consist of like bread and tomato soup. A major ingredients in this meal is 1/4 pound of two-day dried crusty bread, a 1/2 pound ripe plum tomatoes, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 garlic clove crushed, 5/8 cup boiling water, 1/8 cup of cream or milk, optional, 1/4 bunch of fresh basil, salt and pepper, extra virgin olive oil to serve. To prepare this meal, you start by cutting the bread into cubes and let it dry out for 30 minutes. Peel the tomatoes and cut them into chunks. In a large pan, heat the olive oil and then add garlic and cook over medium heat for 1 minute without browning it. Add tomatoes and cook on low for 20 to 30 minutes until mixture is very thick. You add your bread and stir in until the liquid is absorbed. Next, you'll stir in boiling water until mixture is thick and soupy. Optionally, substitute 1/2 cup of water for cream or milk, and you'll season to taste with salt and pepper. And then you remove the basil leaves from stems and tear into little pieces. Make sure the mix into the soup, and then you serve the soup warm and drizzle with extra virgin olive oil.
Hi, I'm Courtney and I'll be presenting a typical Italian dinner.
Okay, so I'll be presenting a typical Italian dinner of chicken risotto and wine. So the recipe for this dish will consist of the major ingredients of about 1.5 cups of chicken stock, 1.5 cup of butter, 1/3 pound of skinless, boneless chicken breasts, 1/6 of a large onion and chop it up, 3/8 cup of risotto rice, 1/9 cup of white wine, 1/6 teaspoon crumbled saffron threads, 1.5 cup grated Parmesan cheese, and salt and pepper to taste. So to prepare this meal, you're going to start off with boiling the chicken stock in a pan and reducing the heat and just letting it simmer for a while. While it's simmering, heat up 4 tablespoons of butter in a deep pan and add the chicken and onion so you can cook that for 8 minutes, and make sure you stir it pretty frequently so the onion doesn't burn. And then you'll add the rice and mix it in and cook for about 2 to 3 minutes. And you'll also add the wine and cook that for about 1 minute to make sure you're also stirring that continuously. Then you'll take out 4 tablespoons of the hot stock and mix it with the saffron and add the stock saffron mixture into the rice and cook it until all of that's absorbed. You want to make sure the rice is all of that's completely absorbed into the rice. Add the remaining hot stock slowly, a little bit at a time, until the rice absorbs all of it. For about 20 minutes you'll do this, just to make sure all the rice has absorbed the flavor. And after that you can season it with how much salt and pepper you'd like. And lastly, you'll remove from heat and add the rest of the butter and Parmesan cheese until it's all melted and it's ready to go. And you'll serve that immediately and sprinkle the rest of the cheese on, and you're good to go.
Hi, my name is David. I'm going to be walking you through a classic Italian dessert. Alright, so classic Italian snack or dessert, tiramisu. What you're going to need is these following ingredients: a cup of mascarpone cheese or soft cheese, 1 egg, separated egg and yolk, 2 tablespoons of plain yogurt, 2 tablespoons of superfine sugar, 2 tablespoons of dark rum, 2 tablespoons of your choice of cold strong black coffee, 8 ladyfingers or biscuits, if you will, 2 tablespoons of grated semi-sweet chocolate. Once you've gathered these ingredients, what you're going to want to do is mix the cheese with the egg yolk and the yogurt in a large bowl. You're going to whip the egg white in a separate bowl until it becomes stiff, and then beat in the sugar. Next, fold the egg white mixture into the cheese mixture. Divide half of this mixture into 4 sundae glasses. Then you're going to want to mix together the coffee and the rum and dip the ladyfingers into the rum mixture. Break the ladyfingers in half or into smaller pieces as needed and divide it into the glasses. Stir any remaining coffee mixture into the remaining cheese mixture and divide it into the glasses. And then sprinkle grated chocolate and serve or cover and chill in a refrigerator.
Here we have our Works Cited page and the sources that we used for all of our information. And that concludes our project. Thank you very much.